Alright everyone, this will be your first charcoal drawing, and you've noticed the first thing I've done to prep the paper is using the blue tape. You can also use the other masking tape, the manila colored, and you're basically going to lay in a border. This border will give it a nice finished look when the drawing's done. I'll keep the border nice and clean and charcoal free. I also give you a place to where it clips here, or you can actually tape it off to whatever surface that you have your drawing on. Okay, so that's masking off your border. Now you can't see the still life that's here in front of me. I'll take a photograph of it and post it later so you'll see it. But the first thing I want to do is I want to lay it out on my paper so I know where everything's at, and then I'll come back in. I'm actually going to use a graphite pencil to lay out my information. And the reason for that is the graphite pencil is easily covered by the charcoal. So if I do make any mistakes in my initial layout, they're easily erased and they don't show up or stain the paper. So I'll be using normally I would use an H grade pencil. Here I'm going to use an HB, and I hope that as I start to lay it out that the camera will actually see what I'm doing. So I'll inadvertently just press a little bit harder so you can see it evolve. Okay, so I do have three objects. It's a mug and two bottles. So I'm going to start laying out the first bottle. So I'm just make like construction lines, kind of laying out where it's at. Maybe throw a center line. Keep things kind of clean. Keep things straight. So I'm looking, I'm drawing. And it's just real loose lines, kind of describing where everything's at. I have a bottle laying down, kind of down here in the foreground. So again, just moving really quickly. I'm not really interested right now in any details at all, just laying in the objects. So there's that bottle. Then right about here is the mug. And the mug isn't quite as tall as the bottle standing. And you can draw through your other objects to kind of figure out where everything's at. Again, this is just a preliminary layout, the sketch per se, just your line. So my mug has a lid on it, so it's a German lidded mug. There we go. Again, don't worry about details. I have a cardboard box that's behind it, and it's used to kind of almost make a space that this sits in. So here's the edge of the box. Here's the wall of the box, and this is the ground that everything sits on. About here is the corner of the box, and there's the other wall of the box. So that establishes the space. You notice that my objects are overlapping each other. That kind of creates the sense of depth of space. The box linear marks will actually indicate almost like the horizon line behind these objects, establishing the space and that depth that's occurring. The overlap creates that sense of depth as well. Now I'm laying in lines that indicate the shape of the cast shadows. And the cast shadows create a sense of drama, but they also kind of create a grounding effect. So the cast shadow on the ground that the objects are sitting on makes them look like they're actually sitting on a surface, so it grounds them, and then adds to that drama that you're actually trying to create. Alright, so that's that cast shadow right there from the mug. And I have two light sources, so I kind of have these additional cast shadows. Let's see, I got a cast shadow up here on the wall from the mug. Something like that. Something like that. Alright, so everything's laid out in graphite pencil. I can come in and fix some things. So some of these areas, like for instance the lid on the mug, proportionally looks a little funky to me, so I'm going to erase it. And I'm going to try it again. I'm going to look again, draw, look, keeping it light. It's the inside of the lid. And the lid has like a hinge-like device. It's about here. It's pretty elaborate for what it is. I'll come back to there, but this is going to be more hardcore details, so I'm not going to really go too much into it. There's its cast shadow. There's that cast shadow. Then I noticed on the cardboard boxes there's kind of a, because of the desk lamp that I have, the desk lamp's over here, I kind of have this glow from the light that creates more of a lighter area, kind of like that. And then everything above this is going to be a little bit darker. And that will create a nice sort of gradual gradient where it'll go from dark to light. Everything will be illuminated here. I'll have the cast shadows, 3 objects in space, going from there. Okay. Some things I wanted to point out before I had gotten started here. I actually used my viewfinder, and I used my viewfinder to figure out the orientation of the picture plane, which would be the best way to convey the information that I have in front of me. I felt that though I have tall objects, but I wanted to show all 3, I felt that a landscape in this circumstance was going to play a better part in conveying my information as a drawing. So I went with that landscape. But I used the viewfinder as an initial start off without making any marks first to figure out if I want to do a landscape or a portrait. I also used it in a way to isolate a specific portion of the still life. And I don't know, hopefully this is showing up. I haven't checked the video yet, but that the information that it's cropped off here in the top here, I still have the top of the shadow here from this bottle, and this shadow over here gets cropped off, but I have all 3 objects in their entirety, and that you notice that I've given a fair amount of space to the ground versus the background, and so that trying to balance that out, the placement of these objects and where they're at, and if you actually use the rules of thirds, and where those 4 potential focal point sites would be is roughly where these 2 objects are right here. And if you notice, there's kind of a strong U that's going on right here, okay? And then it's kind of created again with the cast shadows, so it's like a double U. So there's a lot of information over here. So we start in over here as a Western culture with reading. You come through all this and you end down here. So, you know, depending on how you're looking at the composition, how it's laid out, where your items are placed, using your viewfinder to figure out how much of this that you want to use, using this tool to crop off stuff that you may not need or think that's necessary, and then you start coming in and then laying it out in one of the H grade pencils and then going on from there. Okay? So I'm going to stop the video here, and then I'm going to get all my charcoal stuff ready, and then we'll do the next part.